along the way. It's still there. But anyway, I've had a passion about bamboo for over 50 years. The first thing I ever bought on credit was an H.L. Leonard 48DF, a 7-foot 3-piece for 4-weight. I still have it, I still fish it. And I bought that in 1968. I've been building rods for 47 years, and I met a fellow on a stream in Pennsylvania, Falling Spring Branch, outside of Chambersburg. And like me, he was a little short, a little stocky, and he was fishing bamboo. And I was fishing bamboo. We met about noon. Turned out that was Tom Maxwell, one of the co-founders of Thomas & Thomas. And Tom took me under his wing for the next 25 years. And he was my mentor and best friend, and put a desire to build not only a fine rod, but a fine-looking rod. And Tom Dorsey, the other Thomas & Thomas, changed rod building in America, or rods in America, by kind of adapting a Japanese thing of not only being functional, but also beautiful. And that's kind of what I've tried to do ever since in working with Tom for so long. And there's quite a history to bamboo fly rods. We saw one, you brought in one that was sold to GIs coming back out of the Pacific Theater, getting on the troop ships, and they had tables set aside with these bamboo rods, and guys coming out, I'm going to do some fishing when I get home. And we see these at shows coming in and doing appraisals. There's thousands of them out there. And I think, like you said, probably very few of them saw fishing, but it was an important part of their acquisition. Right. So I had some notes about, oh, there they are. And there's quite a history. The history of the rods you see here, most bamboo rods today are the 6-sided. People are also making 4- or 5-sided rods. I make 6-sided. I don't feel like I've mastered everything I can do with the 6-sided format. And but they're also 5-sided and 4-sided. The 6-sided bamboo split, rent and glued, they called it back then. It's split together, tapered, put together, and into a solid core. And I'll show you some of this shortly. Was an American invention by, it's accredited to Samuel Philippe, a gunsmith out of Pennsylvania. And from there, that legend was handed down to H.L. Leonard. H.L. Leonard opened a rod shop in Bangor in the late 1800s, and eventually moved that shop, the Leonard shop was moved down to New York in the Catskills. And that H.L. Leonard line kind of spawned a lot of well-known rod builders. Now, prior to World War II, virtually any fly rod you'd pick up, if it wasn't a telescopic steel one, it was made out of bamboo. And there were companies like Montague that were putting out up to 4,000 rods per week. 100 employees working 6-day, 3 shifts a day, and they had railroad sidings for the amount of bamboo that was brought into it. There's nothing like that today. Probably the biggest production shop in the United States today would be Glenn Brackett's shop out in West Twin Bridges. He's moved the shop to Butte, and I think Quinn's putting out a couple of hundred. But you find out that a lot of the rods today are being built by hobbyists, and there was a book put out in the late 70s, I think it came out, by Everett Garrison and Hoagie Carmichael, and it's a book about that thick, and it's kind of it's got a lot of engineering in it, but it generated a whole cult following of hobbyist rod builders, hand planers that plane and use planing forms. Now they have adjustable planing forms that they set the taper in the form and then they plane it. I built my first 3 rods on an old herder's farm, which is a non-adjustable form, and I don't know, some some horrible person designed that. It's a torture for anyone that wanted to build a rod. But I managed to put out 3 of them, and I decided I can't do this. I need something. This is before, let's say, before adjustable planing forks. I need something that I can do more with tapers. And so in 1974, I bought this machine. And this is a milling machine that was designed for the Montague Rod Company in 1925. And based upon this prototype machine, Montague had at least 3 more machines built. This machine has been in my shop since 1974, and it has a 5.5-foot traversing bed. The bamboo rides on top of it. It goes through a 60-degree cutter, and the taper is built into the form that the bamboo sits on. And it allowed me to do a lot more with tapers, to build more precise tapers, to build more precise cuts. And I've been using that technique ever since. Bamboo is a remarkable material. It's strong. It's in Asia, a lot of the high-rises, the scaffolding to build high-rises is built out of bamboo. And you know, you think of bamboo as a little wispy stuff that you try to get rid of in your garden, and that's not what the rod bamboo looks like. The stuff I start with comes in 12-foot combs, and it looks like this. There are 3 things that make this rod worthy. One is it's heavy. The other thing is, if you look at these outer fibers right below the cadmium, right below the shiny bark, there's a very dense, we call them the power fibers. And that's what is the rod worthy stuff. It is the longitudinally fibers go through it, and it's dense, it's heavy, it's denser than ebony, and it makes for a fine rod when properly produced. The other thing are the nodes. You know, a lot of bamboo, you'll see the node dips down below the surface. When we're milling or planing, it doesn't matter. I work to 1,000th of an inch tolerance, so you have to start with a flat surface. This node is relatively flat. We press the nodes. It helps that bamboo is also thermoplastic. You can heat it, bend it, press it, and it will retain the press or the bend when it cools. I'm going to pass this around. You can take a look at, heft it, look at the nodes, and look at the end grain, and you'll see how that fits into the building of the rods. We start with that comb. We split it down the middle. There are inside where the nodes are, there are dams inside the, you can probably see one on the one end of that. There's a dam. You can't see through the comb. We split it in half. We knock out the dome, the dams, and then we split it into, this is like for a midsection. When we do, I say we, I have an apprentice that's been with me for 15 years. I still call him an apprentice. He's a master rod, he builds a beautiful rod. But when we pick the combs, we do the node staggering. You don't want a node stick right next to each other in the rod. It's a weak spot, it will change the rod. And so we mark these like red, black, or some red, black, whatever. And so that you have a red, a black, and you have a 3-3 node staggering. And that's right after we cut into this size. This is what it looks like, and you look at the red and the black, you can see how those nodes, the red will be here, the black will be in between. So we're passing that around. After we do that, we press the nodes, and I'm going to pass around this book, and you can flip through it. It has a lot of things. Some of the things I'm talking about, this is my shop, and this is the machine. This is some of the combs that we pick from. There are a lot of the machines. This is pressing the nodes. Anyway, you can get an idea of the kind of things we do, the machines we use, and the handwork that we do. I'll just pass this around and flip it around and make it an easier way to start. So once that those sections that are going around now have been, the nodes have been pressed, and we straighten them because we're putting them through a machine that's a beast. And we'll knock off the edges so you get a little bit of a start of a 60 degree, because you remember math, 6-sided, you're going to have 60 degrees, 60 degrees makes a hole. It's a 6-sided rod. And we'll run that through the mill and we'll put a rough taper in. We'll build the taper into, this is the taper board right here. That taper board, we can adjust that, and we adjust the tapers. We work to 1/1000th of an inch tolerance, and we work to 3-inch increments, and sometimes, and we do compound progressive taper, and the rate of change is not uniform. You know, sometimes between 3 inches it's going to be 5/1000, sometimes it's going to be 1/1000, sometimes it might be 7/1000. It varies with the taper you design, the action you're trying to get to. But that bamboo that you see that has the thing, and the nodes pressed and so forth, it'll go through here and you'll get a 60 degree, we'll put a rough taper on it. Then we'll put it in an oven. And bamboo, when you cook it, I cook it for 9 hours at 270 degrees, and it becomes hard, and it becomes stiffer, and it gets a slight color change. The color I look for in my rods is this kind of dark blonde color, most of them. I will occasionally do a darker kind of a color. I don't flame my rods, but I do, with application of heat, get some color change. And but then we'll run all of the strips through the machine. And when I say all of the strips, we build a butt, and we build a mid, and then we build tips. That's for a 3-piece rod, just 2 for 2-piece rods. And but a taper is made for every different section. We'll make a taper for a butt, we'll make a taper for a mid, make a taper for a, and we've gotten it where we can do a new taper in about 30 minutes. So we can have adjustments on this machine, and then we file it down to the last thousandths. And then we run those through the rough cut, and then we heat treat it. And then, so you got rods that look like rods. Well, they're fat, they're big, they're more like a walking stick. But and then we'll take that back and do the final mill, probably the last 35 thousandths to get to the final taper. And once that's done, and this is what these things look like. I don't know, there are butts and mids and tips, and I'll separate it into a couple of different groups here. And these are what they look like after they come out of the mill. And you can just pass it. Watch out, these things are a little sharp. In fact, here's some butt sections you can pass around. Be careful, it's been heat treated. It will cut you if you're not careful. In fact, I think in Nam they were heated and used as weapons, and punji sticks and the like. And bamboo is remarkable. It's strong. It's very user-friendly. It can be manipulated, and it can be held to very, very small tolerances. After we get those sticks through to the final taper, we'll run what we call a tri-stick. And we'll run that tri-stick through, glue it up. I'm gluing up with a urea formaldehyde. I mean, I don't have any secrets. If you want to know anything I'm doing, just ask. I had the same thing happen to me. I was once in Glenn Brackett's shop when he was in Twin Bridges. And he says, the shop is yours, there are no secrets. And so I've been there a couple hours, and I said, Glenn, I'm having trouble getting the heat shrink stuff that you put on the grip while you're working there. I says, I can't find anything narrow enough to do it. Where are you getting this heat shrink stuff? He says, oh, I can't tell you that. And then he said, but think saran wrap and a bandsaw. It's like it's just cutting, sections of saran wrap and wrapping it, and it looked like heat shrink. And I have done that on occasion, but I have found a little bit of heat neat trick too. So, any event, we'll put that on the grip. After we put it there, we glue it, and what it looks like, we put it glued and we run it through a hand machine that will put these wraps on here that under pressure, that will hold these 6 strips together while the glue cures. And this is what one of those looks like. And that is pretty far along. We put a lot of work into it by the time it gets to that, because we've milled all of those, we've designed the taper, we've milled it, we've selected the comb, we've staggered the nodes, we've done all of that by that point, and it's glued together. Now, I say we do a tri-stick first, because sometimes you don't have the mill tweaked just right, or for some other reason, we're a few thousandths off at some place or another in the taper. And so we'll take and we'll remove those cotton wraps, and then we'll file it down, we'll scrape it, then file it down, take all the glue off, take the bark of the cane off, and then we'll measure it with a micrometer to see how the final taper goes. Then we'll tweak this taper board here to get it, if we're a little over at 12 inches or a little under at 18 inches or whatever, we'll change that, and then we'll run, sometimes we'll run another tri-stick if we're off by very much on the first run.
Is that milling machine blades or endives or sand? How does it work?
Pardon me, the what?
See a cutter.
The cutter? I started to bring one, but they're so sharp. You don't like to hold the blade. It's a 60-degree cutter head. I'm actually cutting at 61.5 to 62 degrees, because to get a little closer on the edges when they're glued up.
Machine blade.
And they're like 3 inches across and 16 knives on each side. So it's 32 knives. And I used to sharpen myself with an old thing I got from Tom Maxwell that was, sorry, at that time 70, 80 years old, and it was really hard to get a uniform cut until I found Dewey in Lynchburg with quality grinding, quality industrial grinding. And Dewey could get a back angle of 8 to 10 degrees. He could get 61.5 degrees, and everyone the same. And so I haven't touched sharpening a cutter head since. But, once we do take the off and file it down, it starts to look like this. That's getting to look more like a rod. That's a butt section. You'll see it has a little swell on it. All my rods have, I put a swell. It's sort of an affectation in some respects, but it keeps the action ahead of the grip. You don't feel a mishmash under any of my rods. You don't feel the rod under the cork. It stops here in the grip. I think it helps with my accuracy. I believe that when I have that grip, it's sort of like holding, in a shotgun, holding your finger like that when you're, pointing it. It just kind of helps with the accuracy. But my rods will have that swell, and that swell is put in here. There's a cam roller right here that goes down on the other side, and on the end of it,